Welcome into another edition of our Cubs Recap Podcast, a presentation of our Recap YouTube channel, available audio only everywhere you get your favorite podcast with my partner, Gordon Wittenmeyer. I'm David Kaplan. Our special guest is Cubs pitcher Jameson Taillon. Jamo, thank you for taking time. You had a hell of a year, man. You've got to feel a lot better than you did a year ago. I'd like to know what flipped for you because I heard a cool story, but I want to hear you first.
Yeah. I mean, I think, with it just being year two, I think that contributed to it. Like just being more comfortable with my surroundings and with my teammates, catchers, coaches. Like I do think that definitely matters. But also like sometimes when you have some struggles, I'm a guy who tries to change things and fix things. I don't just like accept struggling. So I think that actually harmed me a little bit last year. I think like I made some changes, lost some confidence. I tried to switch the delivery up, the pitch usage up. And then this year it was like we figured out what my strengths were. And even when I had a bad outing, it was like, let's just stick to the plan, stick to the routine. We know it works. You don't need to go switching everything. And I think that helped a lot too.
So I heard a story. I told this to Gordon. Someone told me that you were, I think it was a wedding, and you said to another player, "What are you seeing from me that I'm not doing?" And this player said to you, "You're not throwing inside enough, dude. You got to throw inside." Is that true?
That is true. Yeah. I was talking ball at a wedding last offseason. I mean, it's no secret. I struggled getting lefties out last year, and I was pitching them away a lot. And even this year, like it's not like I pitched them in a ton, but it was like just being aware of like, hey, when these guys seem to be on the stuff away, especially like the soft stuff, like maybe that's when it's time to be aware of that and, make them feel a fastball in and make them aware to it. So it's not like I went out there and just lived inside, but it was like, okay, maybe I do need to put this in the scouting report a little bit and just make hitters a little bit more aware of it.
Hey, how much did things turn a little bit, at least for you, maybe mid-season last year? When I was looking at some of the breakdowns, it looked like from about early July on, something seemed to fall into place, because I think from there, your numbers are pretty consistent all the way through now.
Yeah, I mean, I think I had a start at Yankee Stadium where like the numbers looked really good from it. I got out of there with a really good outing. I honestly like didn't feel that like I was that good. I just think a lot of balls were hit at guys. I made some pitches when I had to, but I think that was like the turn for me. I needed a good one. I needed to remember what that felt like. I needed to like be able to sit on a good outing for a few days, and just kind of reflect and be like, okay, that's who I am. That's what I want to get back to. And sometimes just feeling some success after you haven't had it in a little while can like trigger, a domino effect and more success. And I feel like that's kind of what happened.
In terms of being a Chicago Cub, I remember talking to Eric Karros about this. I broadcast for the Cubs for 25 seasons. I was there that night in 2016 when they won it in Cleveland, as was Gordon. And I remember Eric Karros telling me and a few other guys, everybody should get to play with the Chicago Cubs, because he said I'd get my coffee, walk to the ballpark. Like, it's insane. He goes, nobody else in the sport gets what we get to do. Do you feel that way?
Yeah. I mean, I always loved playing in Chicago as a visiting player. It was always like, when you look at your schedule for the next year, you circle, hey, we're going to Wrigley. Like that's a trip where family wants to go on, and you want to make your dinner reservations and all that. And now obviously playing here and actually getting to like settle down here. I've really loved being here. I've loved being a part of the Cubs, and we haven't the past 2 years necessarily accomplished what we wanted, but I still think the Cubs and the city of Chicago has that allure across the league. Like I hear from players all the time, like, man, I would love to get a taste of Wrigley. I'd love to play there. And it's not just players, it's staff. It's, people I've crossed paths with, on other teams who would love an opportunity to be a Cub. So I don't take it lightly. Like I definitely recognize how awesome it is to be a Cub. And when you hear other people like hype it up and boost it up like that, it definitely makes me kind of appreciate it even more.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because I was over in the Reds clubhouse as the season ended, and doing, talking to guys after the last game, including, I think he pitched against you, Nick Martinez, about the environment in that ballpark. And those guys were saying there's nothing better than it. And Martinez is a free agent. What do you think about that kind of a fit for what's already a pretty strong pitching staff.
Yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, our pitching staff was definitely a strength this past year, but I'm always down to make it better. I think me and him had a pretty quick game. I enjoyed that. I enjoyed going toe to toe with him, and a guy like that, just using him as an example, like kind of a Swiss Army knife, like can 100% start in this league, but can also transition to a bullpen role, and he's proven he can do it. He's probably earned the right to start, but just, the ability to be able to do multiple things, I think, is huge. And yeah, I mean, I would imagine Wrigley and the Cubs would be like a top 3 destination team and organization for just about every player in the league.
And maybe a pitcher, especially after the way it played wire to wire this year, huh?
Yeah, that was different. I think I saw something like we were the second most pitcher friendly park this year and like the 27th most pitcher friendly park last year. So it's kind of crazy how that can change from year to year.
So as I look at you, I was screaming the month of July. Again, I've covered this team for 30 years, and I hosted pre and post radio and TV for 25 consecutive seasons. So I've seen it all. And I was screaming on my morning radio show, screaming on our YouTube channel here. Do not trade this guy. You got 2 more years at reasonable money, and this dude is a horse, and he loves being here. And they didn't trade you. Were you nervous leading up to it? I mean, you're a pro. You've been traded. What is that like?
It's weird. I got traded from Pittsburgh to New York, and that whole offseason, like I was in pretty good communication with our GM there in Pittsburgh, and he was like, dude, these other teams know what we know. You're a good teammate. You're a good player. You're affordable. Like, we have no intention to trade you. We don't think we're going to get your top value right now, because I was rehabbing elbow surgery. And then he called me back down the road and was like, we're starting to get pretty overwhelmed with some of these offers. Like, we might have to think about moving you. Don't be surprised, whatever. So his voice kind of changed, his attitude changed towards it, and I ended up getting traded. And I kind of felt the same way at this trade deadline. I from what I gathered, it's not like they were out there just trying to get rid of me or anything. It was like maybe throwing some bait in the water and seeing if anyone would bite type thing, and see if they could get what they wanted. But yeah, I mean, I think from like the human side of it, like, I really enjoy being here. I enjoy being the guy who goes out there and takes the ball and makes my starts and pitches deep into games. I enjoy being the guy to interact with young pitchers and take them out to dinner and be in communication with them. So I obviously think I bring value on the field, but also like off the field, I feel like I make people around me better. And I would have definitely been disappointed if I got traded, but I understand how that all works.
It's a business.
Yeah. I get it.
What you've seen of Shota this year, and Steele in particular last year, what you can do as you go forward, looking at this. I guess it's 2 questions. One, you guys had one of the better rotations in baseball for most of the year, and it only went so far because of some other issues with the ball club. How frustrating is that? But then when you look at who's coming back over the next couple of years, what do you think you guys can do going forward with that in place?
Yeah, I mean, just the rotation in general, it was a lot of fun to be a part of that group, because it felt like every night someone could do something pretty awesome. And I mean, Steele was obviously great last year, and when he was out there this year, he was pretty dang great too. Javier Assad's probably one of the most underrated pitchers in baseball. Shota was brilliant for us this year. So just being a part of that group and being in those meetings and conversations and watching those guys go out and compete, like, that's a really, really fun group to be a part of. And then, I know we have a lot of talent coming up through the minor leagues. I'm always open to us adding and stuff too. So, that is a really solid crew. And, I think just having success and being around other people having that type of success just makes everyone else around you better. So hopefully we can keep like continuing that and pushing that forward.
So I loved when Council and then you talked about, we got to build a 90-win team here. And you said, man, when guys would roll into Wrigley 16, 17, 18, like, oh man, we got to deal with all those dudes and their pitching, the whole deal. Right now, and this is not a shot at anyone on the roster, it just doesn't seem like it's an uncomfortable trip. Is that a fair way to put it?
Yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, like, your record is what it is. And I think Count said something like that. Like, I think we have a really good group. I think we have a really good team. And like, I think all year you heard us in the locker room say like, man, I really believe in this group. And I think everyone still does. But at the end of the day, like the proof's in the pudding and the results are the results. And that's just
Right.
how it is. So yeah, I mean, I think we do have a really good group. I also think we have a lot of young players who have a chance to be really dang good in this league. And I think it's good to say it out loud and like set the expectations and let the young guys coming up know that like, yes, being a big leaguer is great. It's fun, but like we're here to win games. We're here to play bully ball at Wrigley Field. Like we don't want people to come in here and have a good time. So yeah, I mean, I just think that's like our next step. And I think it's okay to say it out loud. And I think it's okay to push for that and set that standard. And I don't think it makes anyone uncomfortable, talking about it and setting those expectations.
It doesn't make the Yankees uncomfortable. They talk about it all the time. And
yeah,
you know that firsthand. So
yeah,
so
there's no doubt. And I think it almost, when those are the expectations, I think it's in people's minds when they work out in the weight room and practice in their bullpens. I think it's like that little bit of extra motivation that might be needed for certain guys.
When you came over, and I think you signed your contract right in that same time frame that they signed Cody Bellinger, and then the team takes a step forward last year. Then in the offseason, the surprising move to go out and get Counsell. So at that point, you've experienced them adding in the free agent market a couple pretty big players. Go get Counsell. Did you expect a little more aggressiveness that offseason once that move was made? Were you disappointed at all that they didn't maybe do more?
No, I mean, I honestly don't know what I was expecting, to be completely honest. I was definitely surprised the day we agreed to terms with Counsell. And then just getting to be around him and getting to know him. Like, I'm sure you've heard a lot of players say this year, but like, I feel like we're in very good hands. I've been around a lot of people in the game and stuff. Counsell is a great like in-game manager. He's great in the clubhouse, but I do think he's going to be really good for the organization and for coaching up the coaches and the minor league development and the front office. And I just feel like he's dialed into absolutely everything. But in terms of like what I was expecting, I really don't know. I wasn't expecting us to go trade for a guy like Michael Busch, and then he comes in and has an incredible year. So it's like, sometimes you just go into the offseason and let it be what it is. And then things can really surprise you.
So I was talking to a player who played with the Yankees, and he said that he was there when George was there, Steinbrenner. He said Steinbrenner every year would have a meeting. He would get every employee, all the players, all the coach, everybody's there. And he said, we got 2 goals in this organization. 1, win the World Series, and 2, the best customer service experience in sports. He goes, and if we don't achieve both, we failed. He said, other organizations don't feel that way. If the New York Yankees don't win the World Series, the season in my eyes is a failure. Is that a fair statement? Because I think it is.
Yeah, I mean, that's a tricky one because I do think
like
just
the
from
Marlins
a strict
can't say that.
Right. And I think from like a result standpoint, like if you're not shooting to win a World Series, I don't know what you're doing in this game. Like if you don't approach your work in the off season, with the goal of like, man, this workout's really hard, but I want to hoist the trophy next year. Like, then I don't know what you're doing and why you're playing. But a lot of us guys talked about this at the end of the year. It's like, from a result standpoint, yes, not winning the World Series is a failure, but you can also take a lot of good from the year and, personal growth. And I know fans probably don't want to hear that. But I think that would put us in a position to have higher goals next year, if that makes sense. So it's like, yeah, I think from a result standpoint, it's a letdown when you don't win the World Series, but also you got to take, what you learned and how you grew. You got to take a lot of the good things as an organization. The development of young players and all that can be a success while the results can kind of be a failure.
Fair.
So this idea of, and I agree with you, should always be looking for that 90 win team. That those are championship teams that you try to build for 90 wins. So when you look at the team and what you guys did and did well, and some of the things that you didn't, what do you think needs to be addressed the most? What would you like to see sort of bolstered and reinforced on this club to make up that ground that Jed and Craig were talking about on the Brewers?
Yeah, it's interesting to think about as a player because I don't have the I'm watching this Astros Tigers game. Tigers just got a big hit.
Wow.
I don't have the answers necessarily. To me, this year was a little interesting. It's hard to diagnose because, again, if you go around the field, it's not like I can point at any guy that I share the locker room with and be like, "You need to get better. You need to get better." You know, it's like it just felt like as a group we weren't synced up there for a little while. Like we would pitch and not hit, or we'd hit and not pitch. So to me, it just felt like we need to be better as a group at winning ball games together. Like, I know that's kind of a cheesy answer, but like when you look at the Brewers, they just find a way to win games. It's not like, I mean, they have some weaknesses on their team, but they just find a way to win at the end of the day. So I don't know. I think it's just getting better at finding a way to win. And then I'll let Carter and Jed figure out from like a personnel standpoint. But maybe we could, shorten some of the valleys, the peaks and valleys and that sort of thing, and just be a little steadier.
Do you want to coach someday when you get done? You're 32. Do you want to be a pitching coach, a manager, a GM, or I won't have to work financially? No interest.
I'll definitely 1,000% want to stay in baseball.
Mhm.
I don't know if I'm going to be into coaching. It's a lot of travel. It's very demanding. I'll definitely want to stay involved in baseball, though. Like probably in a front office role. I've always had this thing for loving to help young pitchers. So maybe like a special assistant role and helping pitchers, special assignment in the minor league type stuff.
Hey, speaking of guys like that, like yourself, what's been the experience like being around Kyle Hendricks? And for a guy that wasn't here all those years when he had some of his bigger years, what'd you make of that sort of send off the other day?
Yeah, Kyle was one of the guys who caught me the most off guard here as a Cub. Way more outgoing than I ever thought from across the way.
Dude. Yeah.
He's the best. Yeah, you watch him from across the field and you watch him not show any emotion and stuff, and you're like, this dude's a freaking robot. And then you get to know him, and like he's sneaky, really funny. He's a great teammate, very invested in everyone around him. I thought really two things. I thought number one, he really earned that send off and deserved it. And then, number two, I think it was important for a lot of the guys who haven't been here, myself included, just to like see how much he meant to the organization and the legacy that he's been carrying on from that World Series team. Like he's still attached to, that World Series winning team. He pitched Game 7, had a great playoffs. Like, I think it's pretty cool. And like for the young guys, I challenge them to look at that and be like, I want that to be me one day. I want to work extra hard because like, look at the relationship Kyle has with the city of Chicago and how much he means to the Cubs organization. Like if you're a young guy, like that's got to be as good a motivation as you could ever imagine.
In terms of, I went through a health scare in the early 90s, and it was serious. You went through something serious. Did that change? It changed. I was always this guy, outgoing, nuts. People would be like, that guy's a nut. Did it change you?
He's still a nut.
I am a nut, but I enjoy life as much as I did, but I also realized how fragile it is.
Yeah. I mean, you always hear people say like, don't make your job your identity, or don't make baseball your identity. You've got to be a person outside of it. Baseball is what you do, not who you are, that sort of thing. It's like when you go through something like that, I think it makes it a little easier to live it versus just those being some like hollow words. So yeah, I mean, I've got a lot of interest outside of baseball. I definitely commit myself to it and I'm very dedicated to what I do, but like there's a lot more to me than just the back of my baseball card.
Yep.
And when I got diagnosed back then, like I was drafted in between Bryce Harper and Manny Machado, and I was constantly fighting the battle in my head of like, am I a bust? Am I ever going to live up to my draft position and my expectations? And then once I went through that, I was like, who freaking cares? I'm going to do me. I'm going to obviously put myself in the best position to be the best player, but like none of that matters. So yeah, it definitely shifted the way I thought.
Yeah. For people that don't know, if correct me if I get anything wrong, but you were diagnosed with cancer, and a couple of years later or a year later, whatever, cancer free, right?
Yeah. Yep.
There was I saw something, a really poignant clip. Wasn't there a moment like you and Lester or you and Rizzo had communicated?
Yeah. I was on first base. Lord knows how I got there. I was
Yeah,
a horrible hitter.
oh, wow, a hitting
But
pitcher.
yeah, no, I was horrible, but I got to first and Rizzo was there, and I don't even remember like the situation of the game. I think it was a close game against those really good Cubs teams, and Riz kind of stopped, looked at me, and was like, "Dude, take a second here. Like, let's take a step back. How freaking cool is this? Like, Lester was on the mound, Rizzo was at first, I was at first, and he's like, you know, how many times in history have there been 3 cancer survivors sharing a big league field together?" And he was kind of just giving me the message of like, don't take a day for granted in the big leagues and that sort of thing. And I was a really young player, and I obviously admired and looked up to Lester and Rizzo. So really cool moment that honestly still kind of gives me chills to think about.
Yeah, it's freaking amazing. Hey, man, we appreciate you taking time for us. Don't want to tie you up, but I've always been a fan from afar. And when you came to the Cubs, Gordon will tell you all summer, I'm like, don't you even think about trading this guy, because if you're going to try and contend next year, you need more Jameson Taillons, not less.
We had a guest on who said you guys were one of the teams that if you had made the playoffs, he liked your chances to win series in October.
Jim Bowden.
Yeah. Again, because of you and a couple of those other guys.
Yeah, we just got to punch our ticket. We got to get in. But yeah, I mean, I'm having a blast watching the playoffs already. There's nothing like playing in this time of year. There's nothing better than this baseball. So hopefully we can bring it back to Chicago.
I hope so. Have a great offseason. We appreciate you taking time for us.
Thank you, guys. Good talking.
All the best to you. There you go. Jameson Taillon, our guest here on the Cubs Recap Podcast. And you can get the audio-only version as well. Available everywhere you get your favorite podcast. All brought to you by our great people at Wintrust. They are Chicago's bank. Okay, so let me bring up Jed Hoyer spoke to the Chicago media. And I like Jed very much. He's been a good guy to deal with. He's been good to me. I was wildly underwhelmed in the comments. Where I got Council going, we got to be a 90-win team, and Jameson Taillon saying we got to be better. And Jed's like, oh, I think fans are happy with where the state of the organization is, and a lot of it has to be internal. Look, I'm not expecting you to go get Santander, Juan Soto, and Corbin Burns. I'm not expecting that. But what I wanted was more passion and emotion saying to me, and I know I'm over the top for a lot. I get it. But I wanted to hear, look, what you watched was unacceptable this year. We had a better team than this. Dansby, I'm going to say Dansby knows, because I've told him before, I'm telling all you. He has to be better for us next year. And Itzhak Paredes, we love that we were able to acquire him. He needs to be better next year. We have to be better. And I let us down in the bullpen. I will address that.
That's what I wanted to hear. I wanted to hear him say, this is on me. After this many years and getting a chance to start putting the pieces together, this is on me. Being the same team that last year just missed the playoffs and like literally the same record this year and further out is not acceptable. And I'm going to do everything that is within my resources to do this offseason to make sure that doesn't happen again. And yes, that should be on me. The responsibility and accountability of that should fall at my feet if it doesn't happen next year. I didn't hear that. I didn't hear passion in that direction. And whether he believes that or not, that's the way that it's got to be looked at. I mean, the Ricketts ought to be looking at it like that. I think the fans are.
Yeah, I was not happy with it. And if he said, well, what did you not like? There was a lack of, we've got to be better. It was more matter of fact for me, and that bothered me.
Well, the thing that I'm afraid of for the fans going forward is that there may be a lack of significant action too moving forward this offseason. Because Jameson Taillon pointed out something, and I don't think that was just being a good teammate. I think he's right. When you look around position by position, there's not an obvious place. that you just go out and replace a guy, plug in an improvement. You could say third base if you want to, but that's what they went out and did by getting Paredes. You're going to ride with him for a while. Your outfield's essentially full. Your infield's full. I know you want to trade Nico Horner. I think that would be a mistake. Maybe
it's
you
not
can.
That I'm not anti Nico Horner. I want you to tell me who you're going to upgrade in your lineup.
Well, that's the point, right? I mean, that's the point. And by the way, Luis Arias is showing us something with that Padres team. He helped transform that offense when he went over to that team. They're one of the best teams. They're probably the best team playing in this round of the playoffs right now.
Agreed.
And part of that is what he does is something that's rare in the game right now still. And the game is moving back toward it a little bit, but Nico's kind of a poor man's Luis Arias that way. He's a contact guy. He gets hits. When you get in a situation, you got men on base, less than 2 outs. He's a guy that can give you a productive out because he's not going to be a high strikeout risk.
Okay, then how are you fixing the lineup? Who are you getting rid of?
Well, that's
because
my
you're
point.
Not bringing them all back in my world.
Well, okay. Then what are you doing? Are you blowing it up? Because if you trade Nico Horner because he's got some value and you bring X back, you're going to have to replace a pretty high value guy at second base.
Well, so, is Matt Shaw ever going to get a shot?
I don't know, but there you go again, talking about the prospects. They're prospects for a reason, man. You can't bank on them. You got no idea what he's going to give you, especially in a rookie season.
So when did they play? I mean, the Brewers
they force their way in. When they make the best players always force their way into the lineup.
Did the Brewers feel that way with Jackson Churio? No. 20 years old. Here's your money. Get on the field.
They had a place for him. The rest of their outfield outside of Yelich was young. They could do that with him. And by the way, he's a guy in their system that the Cubs don't have in theirs. So don't even be throwing Churio out there. That's a top of the top prospects list guy.
How about the kid on San Diego who might win the Rookie of the Year?
Look, the Cubs have good players in the minors. They have some depth in the minors now. They've got actual major league prospects now, but they don't have elite guys. So I wouldn't be going down that road trying to bank on some guy's going to come give you lightning in a bottle as a rookie. You need to be the Chicago freaking Cubs and go get bankable players. Now, that said, I go back to what I started with what Taillon was talking about. I don't know that there's a specific slam dunk place where you can go short of getting Juan Soto and replacing one of your veterans with him. There's not a slam dunk place.
Yeah, that's 708 OPS from Nico. That's just screaming that we can't make a move. Like,
Dude, 708 from Nico, because that's always going to be driven by on-base percentage because he doesn't have a whole lot of pop. I'll take 700 is good Nico. That's good Nico performance. And he's giving you a lot that other players in the game today don't have. He gives you a dimension that's not common in the game right now.
Okay, hold on a second. Ian Happ had a good year. He did. He had a good year. PCA might be your best freaking player. He will be up the entire season. And you're going to play, I don't know who in right because they think Cody Bellinger is opting out. And if he does opt out, then I don't know what you do with that money. Hopefully you spend it. Paredes is going nowhere. Dansby's going nowhere. I would think Michael Busch is going nowhere. I know what I would do with Michael Busch and Amaya, and then they'll go get another backup type guy, maybe a better version of Bethancourt. So I'm running the same milquetoast vanilla lineup out there. Me, I'm taking Nico Horner, Michael Busch, and a good prospect and calling Toronto and going, give me freaking Vladdy Guerrero. I want him at first base. I need some effing difference makers.
You know what you need? And this is what this team ought to do.
Drink. That's what I need.
Well, yeah. Especially right now. A sedative, probably. But look, what they need is to double down on pitching. If you've got money to spend, PCA is going to be a top flight defender in center. He already is.
Yeah.
If he's there all year next year, you've got center field, a glove in center field capable of matching up with just about any glove in center field. if Swanson and Horner are healthy next year, you've got as good a middle infield as just about anybody in baseball defensively. You've already got one of the better rotations if those guys are healthy. Now, you make sure you've got depth of reliable veteran guys in the pen, and you go at a starter. And then all your young guys come in and supplement when a guy has to miss 15 days because of a calf or a little soreness in his elbow or shoulder, but it's short term. Whatever the case is, all these other guys become further down the list in depth, and you're that much stronger. You can now play low scoring games against anybody. You score 3 runs, you got a chance to win any game. That's what they need to do, because they can prevent runs if they keep that up the middle group together and double down on pitching. That to me is the way to spend whatever resources you got, because they don't have Juan Soto resources. And to make your trade with Toronto means you're going to gut another place. Now, you're replacing Bush, but you're going to compromise your middle defense in the infield.
No, I'm going to play my freaking top prospect there.
Okay. And now we're going to be complaining about how he's got a 280 on base percentage or whatever the first 2 months of the season. I'm just saying, you got no friggin' idea what you're going to get out of there, but you do have a productive contributor, a championship style of player in Nico Horner. And that, again, that 708 OPS, you take that with that player. You don't take that with a corner infielder or a guy that's got any pop at all, but you take it with that guy because that gives you versatility in your lineup of hitting versatility, styles, and you can do different things.
You've been royalized. You're thinking you're the Kansas City Royals.
You're out of your friggin' mind. I don't know what you're thinking.
You're a Minnesota Twin guy. I want to act like the freaking Phillies. Star after star.
You're a goddamn Disneyland guy. I don't know where you think that you're going to suddenly come up with this magic kingdom of a lineup of hitters that's going to make all the difference in the world. I mean, Vladdy Guerrero didn't make the Blue Jays a winning team this year, and I'm not pissing on him at all. He's a great player, but he's not going to suddenly transform your lineup. You got, for 5+ months last season, roughly, you got MVP caliber performance out of Cody Bellinger, and that helped you get 83 wins. One guy, unless he transforms, there's like 6 guys out there in all of baseball that can come in and actually transform your lineup for you. And they're all in the playoffs right now, helping other teams try to win a championship.
Gordon, have a great day, man.
All right, you too.
You're the best. There he is, the great Gordon Wittenmeyer. We got the tangle on this podcast. It is the Cubs Recap Podcast, a presentation of our Recap YouTube channel, available audio only everywhere you get your favorite podcast. Thank you to Jameson Taillon. Please hit the subscription button here on the channel. Hit that little bell, click it, and you'll get notified every time we have new content. For Gordon, for Jameson Taillon, I'm Kap. Take that.